Good afternoon. I'm Charles Shapiro, President of the World Affairs Council of Atlanta.
And I'm Megan Torrey, CEO of the World Affairs Council of Connecticut. Today's program, Edible Arrangements, The Power of Entrepreneurial Spirit, is a joint program of both the Connecticut and the Atlanta Council. I want to do a special shout out for our board members that are joining us today: Peter Kelly, Donna Collins, Isam Bure, Jim Connor, Clive Cunliffe, Justice Walla, and a big thank you to Mr. Zahir Sharaf, who's joining us from the Pakistani American community here in Connecticut.
And I want to welcome our board members: Paige Alexander, CEO of the Carter Center, Allison Padilla-Goodman from ADL, and Dr. Jagdish Sheth from the Goizueta School of Business at Emory University, and especially Asma Farid, who is a board member of both the Connecticut and the Atlantic Councils, and that's why we've got a joint program today. In addition, I want to welcome Dr. Ben Lawrence, Professor of Franchise Entrepreneurship at the Robinson College of Business at Georgia State, and Ben Harris from the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, who works exclusively on franchising, and both of them have helped promote this program among the franchise community. At about 12:30, we'll take questions from the audience. Please submit your questions using the Q&A function on the toolbar at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and please keep the questions short.
Tariq Farid is the founder and CEO of Edible Arrangements in the Farid family of businesses. Asma Farid is the vice president and managing partner of Farid's & Co., in addition to serving on the board of the World Affairs Councils of both Connecticut and Atlanta. Asma is also on the board of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. In 2013, Asma and Tariq founded the Tariq and Asma Farid Foundation, which works to provide the basic needs of food and healthcare, as well as improve lives through the support of education and skill development opportunities. The foundation also operates a free hospital in Pakistan. Welcome, Asma and Tariq.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Thank you, Charles. I see a lot of friends from all over the world here. I mean, of course, Zahir, Saud, Shahid, and then we have Jem joining us from Turkey. So it's so nice to be amongst colleagues and friends. And thank you for having us, and thank you for allowing us to share our story.
That's great. Tariq, let me start with at the beginning. How did you get the idea for Edible, and how'd you turn that idea into a business?
So I think, the idea was never really mine. I had seen the fruit arrangement type of concepts being done, but it's really what you do with the idea. And all that goes back to kind of, one, the love for fruit. I mean, there's a great tradition within Pakistani families that, the fruit is what everybody sits, and that's what happened every night after dinner. Everybody sat, be it mangoes and others. So when we saw it, there was a natural attraction towards it, but we were in the flower business. And from the flower business, I got into the IT business of putting POS systems in flower shops back in the mid 80s. And then when we saw this, it was really bringing both of those experiences, and we knew we were onto something. But I never thought it'd be this big, or we were on something. We need to add something to our flower shop, open a few shops here and there. But the web was just taking off. So that technology knowledge really helped. So first thing we put together was a POS system, an e-commerce site. And then, it just was at the right time. And we were just very lucky. The timing was right. People were looking for something unique and different. And, it just started out with a 600 square foot store within the flower shop that just, no pun intended, blossomed from there.
When you have a new idea like that, something that hasn't been done before, do you have problems convincing bankers to give you loans so that you can expand? I mean, how'd you get the capital to move from one location to what you got today?
So I was always, I'm like a dreamer. I was young. I read a lot of magazines, and I read a lot of trade magazines, so that I would read about the Waltons and everything. So my thing always was, I wanted to put a store at every corner, even in the flower shop business. I wanted a chain of flower shops. But the challenge always was raising funding. I would write these great business plans and present them to banks and everything as a 20-year-old and everything, and always get rejected. Fast forward Edible, I thought it was a brilliant idea. And I'll tell you, I have to give credit to my mother. Everybody thought it was not going to work. And I took an arrangement home. I put it on the dining room table. My mother looked at it and she says, "This is going to be big." I mean, that was already, and that's all I needed to kind of hear. And so after that, I wasn't able to get money. I presented a business plan to a bank and they rejected it. And it was $120,000. I was just trying to open one store. But I think at that point is when you have to really just, the grit part takes over, that you're going to do it, you're going to figure it out, which so many entrepreneurs do so well. And especially entrepreneurs in other countries where banking and kind of finances aren't that available. So with that, you get back to the creativity of everybody getting involved and pitching in and making it happen.
So your mom was absolutely right, because there is nothing that brings a smile to all of our faces more than when you get an edible arrangement, and how wonderful it is. So Tariq, can you talk a little bit about, was it always your intention to franchise edible, and in how has that proved successful?
Yeah, so I've always shared this story. Look, I think when you don't have all the other resources, finances, and I call it pedigree. I mean, my family didn't have money, so there was no experience of managing money. We were just lucky and very blessed to be here and just surrounded by amazing people who supported us. So the part of like taking something or thinking about making it big or that was always the vision, right? You work hard. You do whatever needs to be done, and then if you take care of every customer, if you kind of take care of today, if you get through what's right in front of you, you'll make it. And then I've always focused on the customers. For me, the customer part was very, very important, but for all of us, that's what we started with. And the philosophy always is that when you take care of the customer, they'll take care of you. My mother, as a teenager, I didn't wake up on time. She would always wake us up, and she always had this thing of that people are taking their hard-earned money and have placed orders. Go to the store, go take care of those customers. There's blessings in that. And as long as we focused on that, it's always turned into success, and it's always been full of blessings.
Asma, how many locations does Edible have in how many countries?
We have about 1,000 locations in 7 countries right now.
Okay, so I teach a course on international business at the Robinson College of Business, and so many US businesses, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, are hesitant to expand outside the US. What are the advantages in the other 6 countries?
So of course you would take, first of all, have to have the right partners to the most important thing. And Edible has always operated on 5 Ps: people, purpose, profit, and product. So once you are able to find the right partner and you can keep it consistent and from products point of view, from customer service point of view, if it's all consistent, you can definitely maintain the standard. But then at the same time, in all these, now it's like many businesses, global aspect of any business, it would of course give you all these advantages from resources. Each country has different things to offer, so definitely we take advantage of that.
And the world's become tiny. With us, for us, going global should be very easy because we are global. We came to this country and we have the experience of overseas, and we've always tried to run a company globally, and I think everybody should run a company global because the consumption of content is the same wherever you go. Maybe China is a little different, but in all the other countries, people are on Facebook, they're on Twitter, now more than ever. Before, maybe it was BBC and newspapers. Now everybody's consuming and talking to relatives. So when somebody receives an edible arrangement in Connecticut, the person in Karachi sees that and they start talking about it, and everything. So I think with that, brands have this, this great power now to unleash, where instead of looking at a $300 million market in North America, there may be a $3 billion market of people they should be going after. Language have become easy, communication has become easy, our connections have become easy. And within the last year, you don't even some places have to travel. You could do this, what we're doing right now, to connect with people.
How do you deal with political risk, exchange rate fluctuations? You know, the legal system in Pakistan or the other countries you're in are so different than the US. Labor laws that are complicated. How do you deal with all that international business brings with it?
Well, I mean, as Asma said, that, you know, one, it's great partners. I mean, we're blessed with amazing teams. You know, most people may not know our whole e-commerce in the beginning was designed by about 12, teenage 20-some-year-olds out of Islamabad. And it's because I couldn't raise funding. So I wanted to do an e-commerce site. I couldn't afford anyone to do it for me. I mean, I was a business person. I didn't know how to code. I ran IT companies. I went there, hired some people.
It was like three people.
Three people, and
people in
Asma
a
ran
room.
that whole team for a while. And just, we were able to accomplish things that as long as you unlock this international. Now, I've always said, Charles, that there's risk, and in entrepreneurship, you have to focus on the opportunity, not the risk. Risk you mitigate, and the risk, when you really weigh it, the risk is really small, and there's ways to manage it. Because in worst of areas, occasions are going to happen. People celebrate everywhere. Birthdays have to continue. All these things have to continue. So people figure out how to do that. And I've seen that in countries, like, people are amazingly resilient in the world. I mean, in Pakistan, I've seen that in the middle of coups and other areas where, people just figure out how to do things. I mean, we had power outages and power shortages. People figured out how to work around that, and the ingenuity and the creativity was phenomenal. So we learned more from them, especially living in the comforts we live in, So we learned a lot in the resilience from them. So I think you learn more on how to deal with it and everything. And it wasn't like that in America always. And you're taking some of that back. So you're doing your duty of giving back. So when you go back, you take some of those American traditions on things should be done to make the world a little better, to take some of those traditions. So I think from that point, most people are intimidated by it, but once you start doing it, you see the opportunity is great.
And then your question was like, many brands, they are hesitant. And of course, there are always challenges, but just we have to stay true to, our basic rules, like, okay, and we have to find the right partners. And that's what helps us to, maintain the standards and, enable us to take risks in other markets.
Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 and how it has impacted edible arrangements. I know we were talking before about, just how much the world has changed during COVID, and Edible has been able to respond to that change. Can we talk a little bit about how has COVID impacted Edible?
So during COVID, I think the most difficult part was, we couldn't see our loved ones, and, even now it's getting there, but still, we can't see our loved ones, and that's where the thoughtfulness comes in play, and you want to send something. So all the gifting businesses, all the gifting ideas, they did well. We were very lucky. I mean, initially there were challenges, and it affected our business, but then we pivoted, and we offered the produce box, so the customers needed more. Offered free delivery and things like that. And then, of course, our amazing team, they were ready. They accelerated, and, many things just happened at a very high speed, I must say. And then, we were talking about this. There were two Ds, those saved us. One was digital and the delivery. So we own that. And of course, at the end, it's, the customers that we wanted to take care of them genuinely, and that it wasn't about the profits. It wasn't what, of course, you want to keep an eye on that. But then the most important thing is the whole community was, facing and fighting with this pandemic. So how can we help? How can we give back? And then at the same time, as a corporate, at the corporate level, we wouldn't be able to do it all by ourselves. But our amazing franchise network, they had the local presence. They gave back to the community. They took care of their neighbors, to the first responders. So at the end, I must say, it's like, because our intention was to, the community, taking care of the customers, the basic principle was there. And then, it was like with everyone else, we were fighting and we were helping to give back.
And we did. I mean, Megan, to be honest, we did really well. And part of that was one, last mile. We have stores in neighborhoods. And second, the two channels that we consider to be probably the most difficult for us, which would be the delivery because of the Ubers and all these other networks coming. You want to pivot away from what you know and you've done always to say, hey, it's easier to give it to Uber. We stayed true to say, no, it will be our own vehicles. We will deliver. There's a uniqueness to our product that we, it's refrigerated vehicles, all that. So that infrastructure and that investment in the digital infrastructure, we had invested a lot in the digital infrastructure the year before. That all paid off. That paid off because now customers can place orders because you can't stand things up quickly. You can't pivot quickly. And then the innovation that we had in the pipeline down 5 years, the team did that in months. Like within months, we brought those things to the front, and all that hard work paid off and everything. And a lot of the efficiencies that got created with this, distance communications and everything helped as well. So I think it was really just it's more the effect of the team than anything. Our team just did a phenomenal job of delivering at that time.
So some of the new products that you were offering were indeed accelerated.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, and it would take us 6 to 8 months to normally bring a product to life. We were doing it in weeks.
Yeah.
And so that kind of taught the team that it can be done. One, we needed to. I mean, nothing like trying to survive, right? And, and what, just trying to survive and doing the right thing turned into something where you're thriving.
So I can say that that the team here at the World Affairs Council of Connecticut can attest to that, because I've sent them both the produce box and cheesecake bites and all kinds of fun stuff, because it was such an important thing for us to recognize their work, and edible was a great way to do it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the advantages of having a broad range of business, because it's not only the franchising, it's also organic produce and packaging, and as you said, point of sale. Talk a little bit about the advantages of having that kind of broad range of business.
Yeah, so look, I think as entrepreneurs, and there are so many amazing entrepreneurs on this call and listening in, as entrepreneurs, we're business builders, right? And it just so happens, I mean, I went from flowers, got into the flower business because we bought the flower shop for $6,000. That's why we got into it. It wasn't, and then from there, the IT, because I needed a POS system, couldn't find anybody, so we did it ourselves. So we build businesses. So when you build businesses and the opportunity comes that something you can build, or you could, and especially if there's an opportunity, we needed supplies. And our second biggest business is called Berry Direct. And that we needed supplies, and no one was carrying food safe containers. So we couldn't put our arrangements or product in a flower container because it wasn't food safe. So in order to create that, started taking trips to China and other markets to go get the packaging. That turned into a business. The e-commerce, built our own team overseas.
I'll just add a fun fact here. So, as you talk about all these ideas, at 10 years ago, I felt like every time we would wake up, Tariq would have a new idea. And, we would actually just like work on it. Okay. So every morning we would be like talking about new idea. So we would laugh about it, but then, it's very powerful and enjoyable at the same time.
Yeah. And you have to be careful because sometimes you get carried away. But, I believe in building an ecosystem, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker, right? You're going to go and put in the hours and put in the time taken to develop something. If you can develop one business, you can develop others. So we always wanted to create an ecosystem around edible where the franchisees would manage their business more than worrying about where to buy the product, be it the orders and the technology, the supply chain, other things. So right now, we together, and with an amazing team, operate about 10 companies. And I think, to a point, doing less than that sometimes gets boring. So that's why the new ideas come.
Yeah,
so
he tells me like, just don't let me get away with every idea. Sometimes it's like too much. So let's just focus on, we talk about it every month, and then we would end up launching another thing.
But it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about launching a new thing. So Incredible Edibles, a new concept. I know we have one here in Glastonbury, Connecticut. brand new store. And has the infusion of CBD products. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that decision, how it's different for the edible brand?
Well, so we own the mark Edible and edibles, and we own this mark Incredible Edibles. And then, somebody long time ago decided that when you infuse, a product into a brownie or other things, they're going to call it edibles. So, and I will tell you, in the beginning, I started out more fighting it, and it was something that I was totally against, that infusion. And then, somebody told me that you really got to look into this, and it was someone who was looking at it from a health point of view, that there are issues that it helps with. There are certain people using it, and the more that I looked into it, the more I was convinced that there is this health portion, and we trademarked health not high, because the whole thing was we wanted to instill in people that we are not interested in the high portion of it. I mean, that's what a lot of people want to do. That all the power to them, but that is not something we're interested in. But we think that maybe a certain percentage of people, and I think if you look at Colorado stats, in Colorado 10% of the people are doing the recreational, but 100% of the people are looking at what could it do for me health-wise. And so I think with that, there's this new trend coming within retail, within business, that how do you make, and somebody had said food as medicine, or food that's good for you, or food that has benefit and everything. So I think it's not just, so we're creating products, we're working with partners that are now making formulations. And this is a long journey. This is a long journey in a very big industry that everybody looks at more from the recreation point of view, but there's an underlying health industry in this that's very, very big. And there are people that are fanatical about it, and they believe in it. And so I think with that, there's an opportunity here. We will play this slow game, and it's something that we came into because of our mark, but stayed because of the difference it makes in people's lives. And we love to innovate in this and innovate with it, where it's more the therapeutic and health side. And at the same time, we'll do great treats. We'll have the smoothies, we'll have the drinks, we'll have all those things that we do well on the edible arrangement side. So we see a big opportunity, but a slow, steady journey towards this as this industry matures.
So let me ask you both. You moved Edibles headquarters from Connecticut to Atlanta. How'd you make that decision? And why did you pick Georgia as opposed to, any other of the 48 states?
So we had an IT business here already, Naranja, our IT company. So that was here already. We still have presence in Connecticut, and we'll continue to have presence in Connecticut. And it was a difficult decision, moving the family and of course the headquarters, because all of my in-laws, all of our family is in Connecticut. Most of our friends,
all of our friends.
So, it was a tough decision, but then at the same time, we were looking at all the amazing franchise companies here. So the franchise talent experience, franchise talent, and the technology companies. And, this is the biggest part of our business as well, technology and franchising. So, here.
And in this new phenomenon, the future is, and you do a move because of the future. My father moved to the US a long time ago, even though he had he was the youngest. He moved here for us. He moved here because he thought this is the better place for my children. And this is, the future is much brighter. And, so I think what we were looking at is, as this digital franchise phenomenon, it really kicks up. What's a better location? And Atlanta, we knew, because we had presence here in Atlanta. And, the other entrepreneurs and a lot of the traditions have done a great job. And franchising is very strong in Atlanta. Some of the major franchise brands are in Atlanta. IT was very big in Atlanta. So I think from that point of view, it checked all the boxes. It was really, really easy. And it was close enough from home. We love the East Coast. So it was, we were close to the East Coast and everything. But business-wise, all the boxes were checked. And so it was an easy decision from that point of view. But probably the hardest thing we've done in our life. Yeah. But at the same time, probably the most rewarding because of what happened as we hit the pandemic and the team members we had and the experience they had.
So you've been here, 2 years now? Is Atlanta met your expectations?
Yes. I would say exceeded expectations. If anything, we're going back to Connecticut and kind of teaching them some of the things they're doing in Atlanta and talking about it. Say, we got to bring some of this here because we're in both states. We'll always be in Connecticut. Connecticut is home, and Connecticut that's where the roots are. That's where we landed. That's our Plymouth Rock, right? So that's where we started. So going back and making anything we could do to contribute to what we learned in Atlanta would be great from a diversity point of view, from the business and the investment in IT infrastructure and business infrastructure, all these things, and some of that was done by entrepreneurs. So we have to do our part as we build businesses in Connecticut.
And we built a whole new team,
Yeah.
whole new corporate team, which is, awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's Tariq, you mentioned this briefly about, your immigrant background. So can you talk a little bit about immigration, and are immigrants in the United States more entrepreneurial than perhaps those born in the United States?
Yes, look, when people come, when we came here, my father would almost open the newspaper every day and look for a business. And even though he didn't come from an entrepreneurial background, my grandfather, back before the partition in India, had a business. And there was always this tradition of this great business they had. And so when we came here, my father was inspired by others who opened up small shops and had businesses and everything, and always looked in the newspaper for a business. And then, came across a flower shop one day because I worked at a flower shop. We went to a Subway a meeting to try to get a Subway franchise. Couldn't get it because we didn't have the money. So, I think, be it a job, immigrants, we're here to make a better life, right? And to make it not only better for the people that are here, but there's a responsibility for people that you left behind, that either if minimum to inspire or to turn around and make a better life. So I think with that, it's like, I like to think my father was like a superhero. I mean, he had a cape on, he did everything. My father started out at a steakhouse washing dishes, mopping floors, worked at Burger King in the evening. It was a machinist by day. So he would come home in the evening and, all day he would work with grease and then work at Burger King. So by the time we hugged him in the evening, he had this unique fragrance to him. But all that was really hard work, and all that hard work paid off and inspired us. And I see that every single day, be it that people will reach out to me and say, look what you've done. For me, one of the most important things are those legacies that you give back. And one of the ways you give back is by setting an example that look what we've been able to do, and anybody can do it. I mean, we came from a village. When we came here, my parents came here with nothing. Like literally, my father would say I had like $20 in my pocket. And he had a job as a machinist. And at that time, when we came here, he worked at Burger King and had nothing at all, but had big dreams. But had a land of opportunity where we could accomplish a lot, and we were able to accomplish a lot.
So I think as an immigrant, I feel like, we appreciate more. It's like, the hard work pays off. And being in another, if I look at it, we have lived that actually, where people like us, they work very, very hard, but the reward wasn't there. And this is the magic of America, I must say. And, we are trying very hard to show it to our kids. And we always think okay, they don't know what we appreciate more, the hard work. We know whatever we'll put in, it's going to pay back. And, I just pray that America's magic would just spread to the world. And, this is something we need to teach others. And it's a land of
or at least what immigrants are able to accomplish here, right? So it's amazing.
So I have a question for you, Asma. How has your faith affected your approach to business? And have you faced discrimination from banks or suppliers or customers because of your faith?
So I would say, I don't want to there were things, but I think negativity is, there are many people who were very generous in mentoring, in, teaching us. So I would like to focus more on, on that. There were discrimination, but there was more welcoming and, more people to give guidance. So there's more positivity there as well.
And I'll share a story with you on faith. And I think sometimes, we tend to shy away from this. Back in '86, I opened a business. I had a small flower shop. I was in high school. My grandfather came to visit, very religious person, and pretty much defined all our life, and what to do, what not to do. Came here, took him a tour of a tiny little flower shop, 600 square feet in East Haven, Connecticut. And I wasn't too ecstatic about the flower shop because back in the '80s in high school, everybody made fun of you for owning a flower shop, And so it was really, it was tough. So he goes to a tour of the flower shop and he leaves and he's very happy. He's like, I'm so happy. I was afraid, but what are you guys going to be doing? Either you're selling something you shouldn't eat, or you won't eat, or you're doing something and that, that you would have compromised, because you make people happy. I love the flower business. And I remember the moment I was driving with him and I'm complaining to him that it's not working. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do something else, because I didn't tell him people were making fun of me. And he stopped for a second. He goes, look, stay true to this. And he called it halal. Halal means do something which is, which doesn't harm anyone or yourself, or which doesn't compromise your religion. He goes, I looked at it. This is amazing. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray that God gives you success. You stay true to this and stay in this business and do this. And I guarantee you, you'll be blessed more than what you can ever imagine. This is what he said in '86 to an 17-year-old. And at that time, anytime I would think about doing something else, I would actually think about what he said, and I would not give up, And so that's what faith means. What faith defines what we do in business, how we do it. And one of the promises he made me make was, you will never steal. And he would say this thing about stealing $1 from a tyrant is still stealing. You will pay your taxes. Look at the blessings this country gives you. Look at the blessings you have in this country, all the things you have. So you have to pay your taxes. Because there was a lot of people who would teach me about under the table, doing this and all that other stuff, how they would do it. He says, don't ever do that. Don't ever compromise. So there's this whole side of faith we never talk about that really instills, and we have brands here in Georgia that actually live by that and are very successful. Now, you don't enforce it on anyone else. He was more concerned, and we're more concerned about what we do, not necessarily what others do.
So
How are we making
it
it
does,
better?
it plays the most important role. Most of our conversations nowadays are about we need to teach this to our next generation, pass it on. What we have learned from our grandparents
Exactly.
and all these values. So yeah, it defines our business. It defines our basics and the basic principle of our business.
And then people should not shy away from it, because the day we start shying away from that, we stop honoring those people. We stop honoring something that's very important in our life, and we start talking about it. And I think it is very, very important. I learned a lot from what I learned in Pakistan growing up, that I came here and we did that here, hard work. My parents were farmers, and they only knew hard work. So when we came here, the only thing you knew was hard work. And that's the one thing they said, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work hard, all those things. And then when you kind of make do with what you have, and be very, very thankful. Be very thankful for and that's what I remember. My parents would first say a prayer anytime they got anything. They would be first, thank God for that. And I think so faith plays a very important role. Now, along the way, you're going to have road bumps. You're going to get discriminated against for different things. So I think with that, as Asma said earlier, that may be 2 to 3% of the time out of 100 interactions. So somebody may have denied me, but Bill and Denise Holdberg gave a 17-year-old loan. They were my father's boss, Bill Holdberg, gave a 17-year-old $6,000 loan to do a flower shop. So a bank may not be there, but there were these angels that God sent that said, hey, kid, here's $6,000, go start a business, and here I am. So I think with that, we believe that all of that is a divine intervention.
So it's almost time to throw to audience questions, but right before we do, Asma, I want to ask you a question. With all of the demands on your time, with all of the big changes going on, how did you decide to get involved with the World Affairs Councils, and why do you choose to stay?
Oh, well, I wish I could do more. I believe I met with you and you had offered, the first meeting was Tariq spoken at an event at World Affairs Council. And then, I wish I could do more, and, with the kids and with the businesses and everything. But it is very close to my heart, the initiatives, the awareness that, World Fair Council is creating, and the networking, bringing all this knowledge and the resources to the audience, to the community. It's a great job. What an amazing job World Fair Council is doing. So, I'm very proud and honored to be on the board, and was thrilled when you introduced me to Charles as well. So yeah, this is an honor, definitely.
That's great. So I'm going to move to questions from the audience, and I get to choose them, not Megan. So I'm going to start with Jag Sheth, our board member, who wants to know, how do you manage supply of produce both within and between countries so that you maintain both the quality and the health standards?
Yeah, so on that, we've always had partners. So our team will go as far as to go to a field and pick a field or work with a farm, and we have a supply network, and of course there we introduced some technology a while ago called the Fresh Network, and the Fresh Network it connects our franchisees with the sources. So the produce will move to about 85 locations all throughout the country. Those are our cold distribution centers. And from there, be it chocolate, other items will move to that local distribution. From there, it's then delivered to the franchisees. And along the way is an amazing infrastructure that's been built by others that we take advantage of and partner with many people. And then, of course, our what's called our berry director, our supply chain team. Last week they were in California. I think some of them are flying out to Colombia. We're doing flowers now, so there's a lot of connection with Colombia. So the World Affair Council, from that point of view, we're very global from our supply chain. So from that, it totally makes sense for us to be part of that, or to be on that, to be talking at that landscape and everything. So the network has been built over 20 years. And then this was kind of one step at a time as we added. Now it's very mature that anytime we want to bring in a product, it's easy for us to move it to the last mile, or I would say the last 100 miles, right? From there, the local distributor takes over and delivers it to the franchisees.
So many franchises have had problems with food contamination, with where they have to shut down and restart and go and inspect all their processes. Have you had any problems with contamination, and how have you dealt with it?
We've been lucky enough that we've caught them early. So having this network and this Fresh Network that I'm talking about, you can easily trace a product and stop it. And then all our franchisees, every employee is connected through SMS, through our store technology system, where we can get alerts out immediately, get batch numbers out. And that's the reason for this network of buying within the network, which sometimes is very cumbersome because it's a more expensive at times than going out to a local produce and picking up produce, but we need the traceability. We need to be able to source it all the way through and know exactly what's in the store. So from that point, that's where this team does a great job of not only knowing not only getting product, but knowing where it is, how much of it has been consumed, and then having owners in every store. The great thing about a franchise concept is that every store has an owner. They're out of that market. They're the citizens of that town. So it gives you a second layer. There's another set of eyes on it that look at the product if it doesn't look good. And our product is very presentable. It has to not only taste good, but it has to look good. And we don't cut fruit. We don't blend it. So not to know what's in it, you're going to see the fruit, and it has to look phenomenal from all aspects and everything. So I think there's a lot of variables to catch these things.
So Dr. Lawrence asks, how much of your brand's success can be attributed to the unique benefits of franchising, of the franchise model?
Oh, I couldn't have done this without franchising. A person walked in the beginning, we weren't even thinking of franchising, and said, "Can I buy a franchise?" The word was buy. I'm like, buy? Okay, that means you're going to give me some money? Sure, I don't have any. So I think with that, franchising is an amazing model. And if you look at it, Uber and a lot of these concepts are sort of a franchise concept, where people bring their vehicle, they're doing delivery, they have a territory or they have a certain route that they're going to benefit from. So franchising is an amazing model for businesses to look at. And I couldn't have done any of this scaling or any of this without franchising. One, to build that infrastructure and take care of the last mile is really, really difficult. And you spend a lot of money in building that infrastructure in the beginning, where franchising people come to it. And you need more of that partnership and the talent. So I would say I would attribute most of our success to franchising. And of course, once you build a franchise, now you got to build the infrastructure to do the delivery, the e-commerce and a lot of those things. But franchising comes first, and we're always store first. Our mentality always is store first.
One of the questions, which I can't find right now, the name of the person who asked it, but what percentage of franchisees are women?
I'd say over 50%. I mean, I don't know the exact number. At one point, it was close to 65%. So a lot of things have changed in the last year and a half. So I don't have the exact number, but majority of our franchisees have been women. And I'll tell you, the bosses have always been women, because, even in franchising, you could have the husband wanting to make a decision or the spouse wanting to make a decision. I would spend a lot of time convincing the wife that this is a great concept, that you should invest in it. So I know we all in franchising know who the bosses are. So with that, majority of our system is women in our system.
Oh, that's great. And that was from Carmen Aranas. Melanie Larkins asked Asma, how has being a woman impacted your experience in business with other professionals, with your family? How do you balance all that? How do you put it together?
Wow, I never I must say, it just empowered me. I feel like I just, I had the most fun, building everything. We still have fun, like working together, and, to balancing it, I guess all the mothers do, all the, when you have your families first, but then at the same time, you're, working, and, we want to, that's our next focus, right? To instill the values and everything in our next generation. For us, it's business. So we, that's our hope and dreams are that our next generation would be taking, will be working in our company, and they'll be taking it to the next level. So as a woman, I would say it's, it's just very empowering.
Ray Khan asks, which current business leaders do you both look up to? I mean, who do you see? Who do you look to for inspiration?
I still have a long way to go from the inspiration from my mother and my grandfather, so I think with that, there's still a lot to do that they instill, so we've been lucky enough that, my mother, and as most people would understand, my mother grew up in a village in Pakistan where girls did not go outside the village, but she was the most brilliant businesswoman, like, the things that she thought of, things like don't chase money, it runs really fast, go do the right thing, it'll chase you. The quotes that she used to say, the inspiration, a lot of oral tradition from her mother. So I think for us, there's a lot of that, of looking within. And I would say a lot of times people don't see, because they get so, googly-eyed by looking at the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos, that they forget the ones who really got you there. The ones right next to you, to sit under their shadows, to kind of, so for us, there's a lot of, my father and a lot of those. So I would say that's first. And, and then for me, it's always been anybody who has been successful, no matter how big the success is. If I find a little shop somewhere that has a line of people, I'm going to go track down that owner and find out what's unique. What do they do? And I find that sometimes in a small town in Pakistan, that you get this person selling samosas that is just very successful, to say, what do they do? And you find out that they're doing something little unique that everybody loves. Be it they take care of their community or their customer, all of those, or a little bit of everything. And beyond that, my mother used to always say that, be careful that your planning ahead is bigger than your management of what you have. So behind you is chaos and you've got big plans ahead. So I think with that, it's just really managing everything, appreciative of what you have, and never really forget to be thankful. Think that it has to be bigger. I think we're at a size now that we never imagined, and we can never be thankful enough for. So managing that slow, steady growth, continue to change. So with that, love reading about other people and everything. But at the same time, I tend to always caution people that sometimes you may get disappointed that you're not reaching the success somebody else has it, but then you don't look at how successful you are. So just appreciate where you are and use as others as
So
inspiration.
I would add to this, like for me, my inspiration is like I grew up listening to stories by my grandmother, who was a refugee who lost everything in 1947 and lived in the refugee camps for 3 to 4 months. And then even that first year she lost everything, whatever the jewelry she was wearing, they sold it to feed themselves. But then at the same time she was able to raise 4 successful kids. My mom was a teacher eventually, and then my father, with very little, moving from a village, setting up a business, actually doing so much. And then whatever I am today is because of my father, because he stood up in being in Pakistan, where the family doesn't sport. I was the first girl. He was in the family to go to the college, and he was the one who was like, yes, he made everything possible for me. So for me to reach the dreams or what he imagined for me, it's still, I'm not there yet. He had big dreams for me, and he had never. So the first question was like, about the woman part. I look back and it's like I never felt like there was any limitation because of my dad. And like he just set this up, and I would give it to them. I still look up to them, like how successful they become with so little they have, and I have all the blessings around me. So of course that's inspiring always. And
So we have big shoes to fill, and we have a lot of people that have inspired us that we still have to fulfill some of their visions.
That's tremendous. We've got lots of questions asking what's next, what's in the future. Diana Lynn asks that you talked about getting into smoothies. What other, where are you going to branch out to next? What's next for Edible Arrangements?
Yeah, so we've within the last 2 years, it was a 20-year anniversary last year. Actually, in 2019 was a 20-year anniversary, and so the brand has evolved. We've gone from edible arrangements to now edible, and under edible, we're going to do much more edible arrangements. But at the same time, we're opening, more treat centers, smoothie concepts, and global. I think the main objective right now is this whole, as I mentioned earlier, not only focused on the 300 million people in North America, but to focus on the 3 billion market, because occasions are still celebrated. To take some of this, what inspired me was I went to Sahiwal. That's the town I'm from. We grew up in when we moved here at 12. And I go after about a few years, and at the gate of it, at the entrance of it, is a McDonald's franchise. And that inspired, and this is a small little town, and it inspired me to say, hey, McDonald's, if you're going to open a McDonald's there in my, old town, the town that I was born in, I'm going to bring an American brand called Edible here. So I think with that, there is this concept of kind of growing the brand, and then also growing into other, we're doing flowers, we're just starting to do baked goods. And so there's a lot on the table. I think what's more important is prioritizing, and then it's slow and steady quality, over quantity, just to do it very carefully as we develop the areas and everything, and to constantly evolve and change. So, and that's really what's happening in the brand now is what's next. Started, and most of it we like to build more than buy. So it's a lot of new brands that we're building, and we're growing and keeping that innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit alive as I hand the reins to the next generation.
This has been great. I'd love to keep this going. We're running out of time. I want to thank you, Asma and Tariq. This has been a tremendous hour and inspirational. And I keep thinking about the superpower that immigrants and entrepreneurs have. And if you cross that, you've got the double superpower. And that your inspiration are your parents and grandparents, and not a course you took in school, or, the MBA program that I teach in. Anyhow, there's a lot to think about. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Charles. We really appreciate it. And for everything that you guys do, you know, kind of on the immigrant side and the world focus, we appreciate it.
We are so lucky to have you as part of both Connecticut and Georgia. What a leadership example you set for everyone to follow, for your family and for the entire community. We are so lucky. I want to urge everyone today to join and support your local World Affairs Council. And if there's one close to you, you can join Georgia, or you can join Atlanta, you can join Canada.
That's great. And we've got some upcoming programs I want to tell you about. So 2 on Afghanistan on Friday, August 20th, this coming Friday at noon. Join us for Afghanistan Collapse with former Ambassador to Afghanistan, Tony Wayne, and former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Afghanistan, Andy Fortsheimer. And then on Tuesday at 6 p.m., we have Afghanistan in Context with Dr. Carrie Lee from the Air Force War College and former Infantry Captain John Keane. Megan, what's your next program?
So I want to urge everyone to attend virtually our Global Security Forum this year. It will be the week of September 28th through October 2nd. The theme this year is Competing for the Future, and we will be discussing all kinds of critical global security issues.
And I want to give out some thanks here to Dr. Ben Lawrence from the Robinson College of Business, Ben Harris from the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Kelly Hester from Farid's and Company, Valerie Lopez DeFrank, the producer of the show, Laura Brower, our social media and marketing guru, Henna Rennie, our program director, and above all, thanks to Tariq and Asma. Thank you for being our guests, and thank you for your continuing support of the World Affairs Councils of Connecticut and Atlanta. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor.
This has been great. Bye, everybody. Y'all have a great afternoon.